Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Danjuman, a lot of what you just said, I really agree with that because it sort of sets the tone for what I'm about to say. Caribbean people are still very much in a colonized state of mind. And it sort of explains why the process of reparations is so slow. A lot of Caribbean people are, by definition, still Christianized, and I think have very little to do with politics. They see politics as a separate entity from day-to-day living. The churches would control the religious aspects of your life, and the politicians control the political sides of your life. Having said that, it has been slowing down the process of reparation in the Caribbean, and I'm about to just explain some issues and some dynamics behind the reparations movement in the Caribbean. Like Ishmael said, my background, my family are all politicians and diplomats, etc., etc. So I really can't help being a semi-politician myself. It's in the genes, I would say. This presentation comes in the backdrop of the BBC program some time ago where Sister Esther Stanford did a brilliant excerpt in terms of silencing a lot of critics about the need for reparations in the Caribbean. I would call it a demolition job where she really silenced a lot of people who believe reparations have no place in the Caribbean today. I remain unapologetic for my support for the advocacy on the issue of reparations for the victims of genocide of the indigenous people of the Caribbean and the inhuman trade in African people. It is my fervent hope that the vast majority of people of the Caribbean here in the UK diaspora would adopt a similar attitude because we must be positive if we are to succeed in this quest. What I mean by that is a lot of people believe reparations will never happen. Let's look at the Jews. They have had, they say they've had their stuff done. Other groups have made protestations and had compensation. Some people believe reparations is all about money. Not really. Reparations is about having our oppressors accept that what they did to Caribbean people, the slaves in the Caribbean and the descendants, is something tragic. And I draw another example, the South African issue. One of the successes of the dismantling of apartheid in South Africa was the movement where the oppressor and the oppressed sat down in a committee of sorts to discuss and to sort out issues among themselves. And that worked really well. It was a process of bonding, a process where one group was able to explain why they were oppressed, and for the other party to explain exactly what has happened. This, I believe, needs to happen in the Caribbean also, but so far the work and the groundwork for that is very, very slow. And in terms of Muslims' activity in the Caribbean and making this reparations movement happen, I really don't see Muslims in the Caribbean taking a pivotal role in making this happen. This is very much down to Caribbean politicians taking a leading role to try and make this happen. Like I said, some people believe reparations is all about money. Clearly it isn't. It's about getting the Europeans who enslaved Africans for centuries and centuries and centuries, treat them like absolute animals, or treat our forefathers like absolute animals. It's about getting them to accept that what they did was wrong, and for us to sit down on a face-to-face basis in a reconciliatory manner and make sure that they apologize to us. Some years ago, the Anglican Church did a slight apology. Didn't go far enough. Bill Clinton some time ago mentioned one or two things when he went to Ghana, to the Elmina Castle, and he mentioned one or two things about slavery. It didn't go far enough. It's not until the President of America and the Prime Ministers of Europe start putting their hands up and start saying that Europe did Africans and African descendants wrong. It's only at that point that reparations is going to succeed. And it's incumbent upon us as African descendant people to make sure that that process takes place. And part of my agenda in my life is to make sure that that mechanism is put in place. Now, what am I doing to make sure this happens? Last week, The Voice ran an article on some activity work I'm doing in Buckinghamshire. I just gave Ishmael the newspaper today. I chair an organization called the Caribbean People's Foundation. The purpose of the organization is to bring Caribbean communities, Caribbean people together. But the strategy is to work primarily through the High Commissioners from the respective countries. And it is my responsibility to meet with every single High Commissioner from the respective Caribbean countries individually and explain to them what we are about. And in 2017, we are hoping to have what would be the first summit for High Commissioners here in the UK. And I want to be spearheading that particular meeting. Now, the significance of that meeting is to make sure that Caribbean leaders in this country sit collectively at one table and address a single issue, reparations. I believe sincerely, if it is not addressed on that diplomatic level, and we have to start from the top because the High Commissioners in this country have a lot of influence in terms of meeting the people's needs, well, so they say. But it is my responsibility to make sure that the High Commissioners play a pivotal role in speaking to the oppressors, i.e. the Prime Ministers of Europe. But if this mechanism don't give root from something like this, from the Caribbean People's Foundation making an implant, making an inroad into what can cascade into something massive, we have to make a start somewhere. I mean, many lives have been lost throughout slavery. And it would be stupid of us, very stupid of us. You know what happened to Haiti many years ago? Haiti is one of the first nations to seek independence, and as a result of were punished up until today. And that's something myself and Dan Jim are going to be discussing on TV, I would imagine, in a couple of weeks' time. Because his research is something that needs to be publicized. And as a TV presenter myself, I want to make sure that that is covered. Because history of Caribbean people is very few and far between and lost. But coming back to the point, the Caribbean People's Foundation is a new organization, and we're going to set the platform to make sure that European leaders meet with us, and also setting the precedent for the Caribbean governments who have already set out a 10-point plan, which has been presented with reputable barristers in Europe. So that it is not ordinary accidental movement taking place. It's something tangible taking place. But it has to take shape somewhere. And myself, I have to be at the forefront of making sure that reparations is sought for. This is no joke. Brothers and sisters, our foreparents suffered indignity, like I said before. And it's like I said, it's not just about the money. It's about accepting and making open apologies to us in a reconciliatory mode. I believe only then we can move forward collectively as a people, where we can watch our oppressor in the eye and let them apologize to us once and for all. And we're talking about breaking down the shackles of racism. It's through these mediums racism still exists, because they still see us as inferior people. And until we stand up and recognize the need for reparations, and it's only through reparations that they can recognize their failures in helping Caribbean people to succeed. Because like I said earlier, Caribbean people are still very much colonized. They're colonized through the churches. And the churches have been used as a destabilizing model for Caribbean people. And they have to be challenged. Not a lot of people are willing to do that. Fortunately, there are few people in the Caribbean who is taking the lead to do that. So some government leaders in the Caribbean, including the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines and a few who spearheading this, has devised a 10-point plan for the entire Caribbean, involving the French and the Spanish-speaking countries from Haiti to Cuba, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Panama. Everybody's involved in this process. So this isn't no Mickey Mouse situation. Some people, because they have an inferiority complex, believe we are in no position to challenge Europe. How dare we challenge Europe? And that says it all. We are a dignified people. We are an intelligent-minded people. We have the know-how to do what needs to be done. But everything has to be done through the proper channels. And I trust and I believe that the representatives who are representing the Caribbean governments in the Caribbean are going through the right channels. I know the Pan-Africanists have an alternative view in terms of how reparations are to be sought. But that's going to be a long-winded process. This is hitting the nail exactly on the head. I haven't been able to bring the 10-point plan with me today. It's quite a long, documented process, and you don't want to read that today. But if you want to get it from me, you can get my email address and I'll send it for you individually. It's something worthwhile studying. It outlines clearly what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, why it needs to happen, and most of all, the amount of reparations in terms of monetary context need to be sought. There's some so far, which this is why Europe is buckling, is something like $77 trillion. When the European leaders hear this kind of figure being bantered about, they are shivering in the boots, because the Jews have had the compensations that other groups have had. If European leaders give in to this demand, it would basically bankrupt Europe. Europe, as prosperous as it may seem, don't have that financial capacity to lay out all at once, to give Caribbean people $77 trillion. That is the estimated amount of money owed for labor loss during slavery. Caribbean people would never get that. Some people believe the governments of the Caribbean wants the money to live lavish lifestyles. That's not about it. The money will be channeled into better educational systems, better medical facilities, better infrastructure for the Caribbean region. So it's not about just wanting the money. The money has specific purposes. Medical facilities in the Caribbean, bearing Trinidad and Jamaica, is diabolical. We are, from the Caribbean Foundation, have just sent from some facilities to St. Vincent Hospital. There were no nappies, there were no medicines, and the Caribbean countries are in that predicament. So the $77 trillion would go a long way in terms of building new schools, new hospitals, and all the relevant infrastructure that is required to make the Caribbean region a dynamic place to be and a place people want to come and invest in. So no further ado, this is a brief synopsis of what the reparations is all about. We hope and pray that it succeeds. It's going to take time, but we have time. It took us 400 years and more to get out of slavery, and I'm sure we can wait, but I know the fight has only just begun. The 10-point plan has already been submitted to the courts of Europe. It's in place. We will sit and we will wait, and we will challenge and we will monitor, and we make sure Europe pays for the suffering and indignity that they caused people throughout slavery. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.